Phoenix Park, the mecca of Irish motorsport. For 60 years, these trees have echoed to the shrill of racing engines, and the park has cast its motoring magic on the memories of the citizens of the capital. On the 60th anniversary of the first race in 1929, the IMRC have brought 60 exotic Porsches as the centerpiece of a weekend which encompasses all the Irish formula. For the visitors, the park is different, very different, a far cry from the billiard board surfaces of the English circuits. But what are all these classes about? Barry Williams explains.
It's the rich, the semi-rich, the coming on and the very poor.
I'm Barry Williams.
Come in, Barry. How did you get in there?
Somebody asked me in a pub.
They pay him.
Well, occasionally, now and again.
This is true. I'm the only true amateur here. Because I have no sponsorship at all.
Posing amongst the Porsches is a very welcome returnee to the park, Alec Poole, a winner here many times in the past. Alec will race in the modified class, and he, like many of his fellow competitors, is a bit disorientated.
I just had a look around yesterday and I couldn't understand why the barriers were on the wrong side of the trees, and I thought all these English fellas would be making, really sarcastic Irish jokes. And then it dawned on me that we should be going the other direction, but so the circuit rotates the other way now.
Rotating in the right direction, the Argos Rent-A-Car production saloons, with Helmut Holyfield in his M3 BMW on pole and Reg Tuttle alongside. At Dublin Corner, Holyfield heads the bunch in the BMW from Tuttle, and Frank O'Rourke also in an Escort Turbo. Then the first gear Ratra hairpin with those damaging curbs. Thomas O'Rourke is fourth, then John Hayes, Jerry O'Riordan and the Capris. Holyfield is pressurised by a two-wheeling Tuttle at Mountjoy, but the BMW has the straight-line speed. No change at Dublin on lap 2 for the top three, who are now pulling away from the opposition. Ratra on the same lap, and a frustrated Frank O'Rourke looks for a way through to second, while his son Thomas leads the rest in the 16-valve Astra. John Hayes is behind in his Peugeot M16. But the second Peugeot hits big trouble. Derek Walsh has landed back on his feet, but life must be a little disorientated right now. There's still life in the 205 as the Dubliner amazingly rejoins the race to start a very brave drive back through the field. In the replay, we see just what a comprehensive moment it was, yet the strapped-in driver survives completely thanks to the compulsory roll cage required when racing. Walsh's recovery is miraculous as he shadows Eamon Mulhall's Colt. And you can see that he's lost none of his nerve as he two-wheels round McMahon's Toyota and Rory Byrne's Golf. But Derek's problems aren't over yet, and they all seem to happen at Ratra. Colm Barrable provides an extra chicane as Greg Conway, Walsh and the rest squeeze through. Any hope of an O'Rourke victory goes in this extra little lap at Mountjoy. Holyfield wins both days, with Thomas O'Rourke second on day 2.
The low-finance Fiats are the other tin-top entertainers, with Michael Leonard's Ritmo taking their race as an aggregate after Eugene Ward and Ken Bolger did not please the post-race scrutineers. The Porsches get off to a bad start. In fact, not a start at all. Now, what do you do with a flag when you can't drop it? The second attempt is much more successful for the Donnelly-Grennan-sponsored Class C and D runners as they head towards the city. Dublin corner and the most expensive traffic jam the city has ever seen. It's Keith Norman and Peter Tyson. Dave Horsley and Mike Chapman is also in there somewhere. At Ratra, Tyson is through. Then it's Norman, before Horsley and Chapman lead this mind-bending chain of supercars. Pete Tyson and Keith Norman are shadowed by Dave Horsley and Mike Chapman at Mountjoy. Lap 5 at Dublin corner and Pete Tyson, 3 wheels, with the ever-present Norman in the background. At Ratra, it is even closer as the leaders get a little wiggle on. But further back, things are getting a bit fraught. Behind the leaders, it's Chapman, Edwards, Horsley, Watson, Ferguson and Walker, who is getting very anxious about 5th place. Back at Dublin corner and lap 6. And Dave Horsley sheds a headlamp as that Ferguson-Walker battle continues. But there is worse to come. Paul Hegarty approaches Mountjoy with the close attention of Dave Bowden. Too close for comfort. The Class D contenders have eliminated themselves. So the Saturday race belongs to Peter Tyson. But for Keith Norman, tomorrow is another day.
Sunday, in the same 27-strong field of Stuttgart Classics heads for Dublin corner. Norman locks up on the outside, but Tyson is on a very tight line. Again, miraculously, all that motoring monopoly money is intact as they head for Ratra. Keith Norman has made it round the outside as they head the field for the second day. It's an impressive performance by both drivers, but Tyson is determined to make it a park double. The paintwork somehow doesn't seem so important here. At the chicane, Norman has stretched it by a car length. Bob Watson is 3rd, Tom Chappell 4th, Paul Goldstein 5th, Mike Walker 6th. The concrete curbs are daunting, perhaps too daunting for Stephen Smith, who decides to take the grassy route. Entering Mountjoy at well over 100 miles an hour, the track is greasy and demands caution. No problem for the first 3, but Watson goes a bit wide. On lap 13, Tyson makes the big bid down the inside and squeezes past Norman's damaged 911E. It's a lead he will never lose. The 40-year-old marketing manager from Burton-on-Trent in his 3rd year in Porsches has conquered on his first visit to the park. Comprehensively. Naturally, Tyson wins on aggregate with Norman 2nd, Watson 3rd, Edwards 4th and Mike Walker 5th.
A family day out in Phoenix Park is nothing unusual. One family, however, the Cassidys, were doing it in style, with no less than 5 members actually racing in the park. Maurice Cassidy acts as their spokesman.
It is a family affair, but we have the family. I'd like to introduce you to them quickly. My brother Edmund, Edmund's wife Aoife, Aoife's 2 brothers, Shane and Dominic. We're all racing in the one race.
All racing in the one race?
In the one race.
Now, what's the rivalry like for all that?
Well, it's there, but it's friendly. Today I'm going to attempt to drive this Sunbeam Tiger, which, interesting enough, is Chris Amon's Road Tiger, which he used on the road when he was racing for McLaren in 66, 67.
I'm driving an MGB in the post-war race. I'm driving a 1930 Alpha twin overhead cam supercharged in the pre-war race, and I'm driving a Malloch in the Formula Libre. So a busy day.
Well, I'm just driving 1967 MGB. My car is 1968 MG Midget.
I'm just driving an MGB.
Well, Maurice, where did this interest in historic motor cars come from?
Well, it started with my late father over 20 years ago when we bought a Model T Ford in Kilchima in the west of Ireland for £69, and the disease has caught on since then, and thank God it's totally incurable. That's all I can say.
Now, when you all get together tonight after the race, what's the conversation like in the Cassidy family?
Cars. All cars.
The weather for the Semperit Formula Ford 1600 race is as bad as it possibly can be. Colin Lees has the inside line, Finn Murray is on the outside, and Arnie Black has the new Crossley in third place. Then it's Griffin, Daly, McKenna and McGall. At the end of the first lap, Lees and Murray are clear and very close. Finn nearly overcooks it in the first National Reynard. Black is third, Griffin fourth, but McKenna's Reynard has slipped ahead of Vivian Daly's similar car. Lap 3 at Dublin Corner, and Lees is determined to keep Finn Murray out. It's brave stuff in these conditions. Lap 4 at Ratra, and no change with the Mondial still leading. Two laps later comes a mighty effort from the Sligo man. This time he's in the right place, down the inside. Arnie Black, in his first 1600 race of the year, is still third in the new Crossley. But it's Mountjoy Corner on the same lap that finally seals Murray's fate, as Colin Lees overshoots. Murray, now with a more secure lead, nearly throws it all away at Ratra. But he's so far ahead of Lees, he can afford to squander the time. So Murray gets 5 wins out of 6 races in his best season to date.
The Wright family from County Down dominate the front row of the Golden Pages Formula Ford 2000 race, with son David, number 2, on pole position. Dickie Curran makes a big bid down the outside to split the Reynards of the Wrights. Fallon is next, then Robert Thompson, and then the pack. At Mountjoy, it's still David Wright from Father Leslie, but PJ Fallon is up to third place. Dickie Curran is fourth, Colin Lees fifth from the back of the grid, then the Thompson brothers. Skipping ahead to lap 8, and it's still the Wrights from Fallon, but Lees forces his way into fourth ahead of Curran. Again, the Maharafelt driver is having a tremendous day at Phoenix Park, which is more than can be said for PJ Fallon, who arrives at Ratra backwards. As we see in the replay, the damage was done in the kink, but fortunately the Dubliner and his car are undamaged, which is sadly more than can be said for a more serious incident at the chicane. As the first 3 file through, they pass Robert Thompson's stranded Reynard. The Dromore driver has hit the chicane heavily, and the medical team wisely don't want to move him until everything has been checked. Although he will be hospitalized, his injuries are less serious than first feared.
As we head for Dublin Corner at high speed. Barry Robinson is directly ahead. Mike Jordan is on the extreme right. Barry Williams is in the white car, Peter Clark the red, yellow and black one, and Chris Millard is already out ahead. Millions of pounds and thousands of horsepower arrive at Dublin Corner. It's Millard, Robinson, with Jordan on his inside, who spins. Miraculously, all manage to miss the lime green Carrera. Williams is on the grass before the kink as he attempts to take Robinson on the inside and gets away with it. At Ratra, Dron's in 4th place, right behind a rather chastened Barry Robinson's 2.7-litre RS Carrera. Ratra is tight at the best of times, but full of Carreras, it's impossible, as a 944 gets forced onto a more pedestrian line. Back on board the 928, we see that Robinson slipped ahead of Williams, and here's the chicane. At Mountjoy, Millard has an impressive lead in the 930 Turbo, and Robinson and Whizzo Williams are hard at it. The 928 should have the speed and aerodynamics on the main straight, but under braking, the 911s win. Heading towards Ratra now, and this is where Williams did Robinson on the last lap. But not this time. Tony Dron brings the 928 down the box for the first gear hairpin. He has to watch the curbs on both sides in this wide car. Out of the chicane, Whizzo's missed a gear, and Dron goes for the outside. On this very fast section of track, we're well over 120 miles an hour. Mountjoy for the second time, very slippery on entry. Lap 6 on the main straight, and Barry Williams is right on Dron's back bumper, and the 911 has less weight to stop. Williams goes ahead again, and the Carrera is more nimble in the back section of the circuit. Dron pressurizes him into Ratra, and it nearly works. But Dron will now finish in 3rd place. Up front all the way on both days, Chris Millard, returning to England with maximum points in the BF Goodrich Championship.
For Des Cullen, the family tradition over the last 30 years has been to race at least one car in the park.
30th year, yeah, never missed a beat, I don't think, in all those years. I didn't race 2 cars every year, though, you know, but I nearly always got around to having one anyhow.
Well, I mean, it's amazing because you would have thought sickness or something would have intervened in all those years.
Not even holidays, I think, got in the way of the park. I mean, the magic of the park is something else.
Now it's the magic of the fast-track GTs, as our camera is mounted on Peter Faulkner's MD GT, which sits on the front row. Alongside is Gideon Hudson's mighty 3.5 RSR Porsche. So the 1600 GTs have quite a task on their hands, especially as everyone's on slicks and it's pouring. Hudson disappears into the rain, but it's a heavy big car to stop. Peter Faulkner 2nd, John Keeney 3rd, and McHale dives for the inside in the Extra Vision Sierra. The Porsche is now slowing Faulkner. And that's John Keeney in the TMC, who goes through into 2nd place, down into Ratra. Incredible. Keeney now gets Hudson. He's taken 2 cars in the 1 corner. By Mountjoy, he's gone. Then it's Hudson behind. Faulkner in behind him. Austin McHale incredibly there in the rally car. Then George Crozier. Des Cullen can't get stopped. And that's Richie Healy, who's going to pull off with a puncture. Back at Retro in lap 2, and Faulkner tries a desperate move. He's been up on the curbs. And he loses 3rd place to Austin McHale. The car's had a bad shock, and Peter decides it's time to call at the pits for an inspection. Meanwhile, John Keeney of the TMC is the master of the conditions and looks set for another park win. Peter Faulkner gets going again. But there's mud in those tires, and it almost causes him a problem here. For pure entertainment, it's hard to beat rally ace Austin McHale. Another rallyman is also entertaining, Mervyn Dunn, who's finding slicks a bit difficult in the rain. Morgan Dempsey slips past the escort, and George Crozier also, who is about to become the 9th victim of the fast-recovering Peter Faulkner. But this time, his enthusiasm gets away from him. Faulkner spins, pirouettes, and gets going again. And his actions have been mirrored all the way around the course. That's Ivan Thompson, whose 4-wheel drive traction should have helped him in these conditions. The Quattro has stalled, and it's right on the racing line. That's Averill, making quite an impact for his sponsors. The climax in power and spectacle are the modified Porsches, and particularly Rusty French's 700 brake horsepower K3. Alec Poole has lost none of his style, even though it's 10 years since he last raced in the park. The memory of the park's 60th anniversary will undoubtedly be the big Aussie in the big Porsche.
Down the straight is quite nice, but round the twisty bits the car doesn't quite suit the circuit, so you've got to try and throw it around where it's not really meant to go. But, you know, everyone else had to do the same thing, so we probably had to do a little bit harder.
It would be anybody's life ambition to own one of these, but 3 of them, Rusty. Isn't that getting a bit greedy?
Well, I need one over here to race in England, I need one back in Australia, and I need a spare in case one breaks down.
So Rusty French leaves Ireland with his £500,000 Charger intact. But Gideon Hudson is not so fortunate.
So plenty of drama from Phoenix Park.